Welcome to another edition of the Insider Mailbag. I'm Jared Johnson, and boy, am I happy to have the mailbag back from its hiatus. It's been at least several weeks, if not a couple of months, since our last mailbag for a couple of reasons. One, just it was the middle of the off season, but also, of course, I took a leave there for a little bit to handle some family matters, but it's back. We're on the precipice of fall camp opening up here in Lubbock for Texas Tech, and then of course the season's just around the corner. But with the mailbag having been gone for a while, we have a lot of questions for the return here. But as you'd imagine, a lot of those questions revolve around conference realignment and what Texas Tech's place is in the craziness that is college football right now. So let's dive right into these questions. The first one comes from, it's actually a recruiting question from Captain Popsicle. He wants to know about quarterback recruiting. He says Tech only has 2 offers out to the 2022 class right now, and they are already committed. Are there any guys that Tech's close to offering in the 2022 class? And he says he's glad to have us back, or have me back. Thanks, man. I really appreciate it, Captain Popsicle. You're one of our very valued customers. You always ask good questions here in the mailbag, and just an awesome poster all around. So I appreciate you saying that. In terms of 2022 quarterback recruiting, the deal with Sonny Cumbie is there are specific guys that he likes, that he targets, and so he lost out on the first 2 targets. Those guys who were heavily recruited, chose to go elsewhere. With the way the quarterback roster is, all of a sudden you have Baird Morton with 4 seasons, highly recruited guy, of course, and he's looked really good in spring. And then Donovan Smith, who still has 4 seasons remaining. So you have those 2 guys who you really like, who have bright futures that still have 4 seasons of eligibility remaining. Tyler Shuck, now he may leave after this year, but he has 3 seasons remaining as well. So you feel pretty good there. It doesn't mean that they absolutely do not want a quarterback in the 2022 class, but if you don't have anybody, there's not anybody available that you really like, you don't have to offer a reach, and that's where they're at. I mean, I'm not saying they're not going to offer a 2022 guy, but maybe Sonny Cumbie wants to see a guy play his season a little bit more before offering him. And you know what? If it's too late, then oh well. Like I said, you feel really good about the remaining eligibility you have, and then they're already actively recruiting the 2023 class as well, with their first offer out to a quarterback of Dripping Springs quarterback Austin Novosad, who I talked to here recently. He just visited for the Junior Day event just the last 2 days here, and he really likes Tech. He really likes Sonny Cumbie. He camped here with Tech. He, like I said, he visited for Junior Day, and I expect him to be here for some games this fall. So, it's not like they're abandoning recruiting the quarterback position. I'm not saying for sure they're not going to take one in the 2022 class, but if they don't find somebody, then I don't think it's a reason to panic. And I almost always think you should take a quarterback every class. I do. But there are exceptions, and this year might be an exception, so we'll see. Red Raider KA says, what does Texas Tech need to do in the next 6 to 12 months to make sure they have a seat at the big boy table when all the dust settles, now that UT and OU have jumped ship? Yeah, that's a really good question. I think the most obvious answer is it wouldn't hurt if they had a nice season, and that a lot of people tuned in to watch their games because of that. So that's one thing. I think that's the obvious thing. But I think also, and this may be obvious to some out there as well, is they got to keep their options open. I don't think they should be. I think they need to be tactical. They need to pull all the strings, use all their powers, all their skills, the powers that be out there, whether it be the chancellor, the president, the board of regents, and Kirby Hocutt as well. I know a lot of people have said things are above his head, but he needs to be, and he is, out there, putting feelers out, working his connections, all that as well. Because I think, and I'm going to answer some of this, kind of get into this later, but I think the Pac-12 is the most likely landing spot, and I think the AAC is an option, which I know most people don't like, but I think the ACC is still on the table as well. I think with how crazy college sports are right now, and college football for sure, I think it'd be weird to rule out any possibility. Now, the Big Ten sounds very unrealistic to me, but I've learned to never say never in this crazy life, and specifically with college sports as well. So we'll have to see, but I think the Pac-12 is the most likely landing spot. Ken Venice says, Tech seems like a good fit as far as a fan base in Texas, the facilities, the success in multiple programs, etc., etc. How much of a drag do you think West Coast politics in the Pac-12 universities administration will affect Tech's chances? He says, from personal experience living out there for 20 years, the fans would welcome the team. Yeah, this is tricky for me because I'm not into politics. I mean, obviously I understand, I have a base knowledge of the fact that politics in California generally are very different. In Texas, though, there have been a lot of Californians and businesses who've moved out here to Texas, specifically like the Hill Country and Austin area. So, the Texas political landscape is changing some. But that being said, what I've noticed with college football specifically is that right now it's a money grab. Yes, it is. I don't have a judgment on that either way. Just calling it like it is. And when these kind of things like politics, academics start being brought up, it's when they decided it wasn't going to be lucrative for them, and politically we just never would have been a fit, or they're not, their academics aren't up to our standards. So, and that's just my opinion. I think that if it makes fiscal sense for the Pac-12 to add Texas Tech, then they will. If they don't, and people will ask them why, they'll use those excuses. We have a basketball question here from Ram944. He says, how do I think the current roster stands up to the 2018 and 2019 teams that went to the Elite Eight and, of course, the national championship game, respectively? He said, are there any pieces that's still missing, and do I feel that Tech needs to add to reach maximum potential? I think the only thing that I'm not sure about, and I mentioned this here, I think in the weekly chat, the Hump Day chat, is do they have the guy that they know can play the high screen game with Kevin O'Banner? Because I think that's going to be a big part of your offenses. The high screen game. Kevin O'Banner is just elite. I know that word gets tossed around and mocked, but he really is elite. You can see when he put up 30 against Ohio State, and then 28 against, was it Florida? I think it was Florida, somebody like that, in the second round. And then in the third round, he had 12, 11, and 4 blocks against Arkansas. So, but he's a very good knockdown shooter. He's also athletic enough to roll to the basket instead of popping and flushing at the rim. He has a variety of moves in the mid post too, if you just want to throw it to him there. But I think really a lot of the offense will revolve around the high screen game with him. And so who's the guard? Who's the guy that you're going to give the ball to and say, okay, let's play the two-man game with these guys and let our offense flow from there? Is it Terrence Shannon? Is it Kevin McCullough? Or is there some other guard? Davion Warren? That kind of, I don't know. Because I don't see can Adonis Arms do that? Yes. But he's more of a, for lack of a better term, glue guy. You know what I mean? He's going to be a great finisher on the wing. He can score some in the half-court game. Great defender. All those things. Rebounder. So I just wonder who is that guard that's going to dominate the ball and really facilitate, as you say, get the maximum out of using talent like Kevin O'Banner. I think they're going to figure it out. I do think Shannon is capable of that. I think McCullough's capable of that. But I just wonder if maybe if you have, and Mighty Joe always brings this up, that kind of smaller, kind of quick guard that darts, here and there, change of speed kind of guy. You just wonder if that would really help Texas Tech or not. Maybe they enjoy the big guards and they feel like those guys are versatile enough to fill that role, and that's something I'm intrigued to see the answer to. And in terms of how I think this team would stand up against those two teams, well, it's weird because both those teams were really tight. In terms of close together, they got along, they were close, and they were versatile, pretty deep. They had just one of the all-time greats in Red Raider history, in Keenan Evans, of course. But then they had all kinds of length and versatility. By the time Zach Smith came back for the tournament, and they were just vicious on defense with some pretty good offensive weapons. And then the next team, when Matt Mooney and Tariq came in, I mean, again, they were vicious, stifling on defense at times, like almost to a historic level. And then offensively, I mean, you had the Big 12 Player of the Year, and Jarrett Culver could do a lot of things. You had Moretti spacing the floor. You just had a lot of really good pieces. How is this team going to fit? I feel like in terms of talent on the roster, I mean, you have a couple of versatile bigs that, like, how would Kevin O'Banner and Bryson Williams do against like Tariq and Norrance and stuff? I think they would do pretty good. But and then you start looking at the guard play. I mean, does Tech have anybody right now as good as Jarrett Culver was? I don't know. I mean, do they have a knockdown shooter guard like a Morrow? I'm not sure. This team's on paper is deeper. So it'd be fun to see. I want to answer this question. Let's say, can I answer this question even as early as December, after we got a couple of months under our belt, or at least a month or so under our belt, to see what this team looks like before I answer that definitively. But it's hard for me to say, oh, this team is better than those two teams. But I will say on paper, it's deeper probably than those two teams. And like, it checks a lot of boxes. Like, I really like the front court. All right, Texas Tech Austin says, in my opinion, outside of a weak reconfigured Big 12, is the Pac-Tech's only option? And if so, would the Pac look at Tech as a university that will be there whenever the Pac wants to expand? To answer your question, no, I do not believe the Pac-12 is Tech's only option. I think you have to at least consider the ACC as a viable option. Now, do I think that's going to happen? I don't know. We'll see. But I can't just completely rule them out. And then I don't know how most people kind of cringe when I say this, but I don't feel this way. But the AAC is also an option. So, I don't think it would be just the end of everything. Now, the revenue would go way down and Tech would have to adjust. Now, that's true. But that's possible. So I don't think Pac-12 is the only option. And then in terms of the Big 12 staying together in some kind of reformed conference, I guess that's a possibility too. I think most people that I've encountered want us to get this done and hurry. And I don't think that's not the way the Big 12 is playing it. And I think that's smart, because I think you need to work all your options, work those deals behind the scenes, but out publicly, you need to position yourself to be able to recoup as much of the money that you're due between now and 2025, whether it be payouts from OU and UT or the TV contract, however you need to do, however you need to maneuver, whatever relationships you need to call upon to get that money, that revenue that you were already expecting, that's probably already budgeted for your future, you need to do. So that's why I'm like kind of pumping the brakes on for a lot of people to just like, let's just do it, let's get it done. I think what they're doing is working relationships right now, Pac-12, ACC, looking around while, keeping their options open, getting that thing, those deals or possible deals in place and seeing where everybody's at while they try and recoup this revenue that's due them, which is very important. All right, Tornado Watch wants to know when the Big 12 basketball schedule will be released. And, that is normally, September. Early September is kind of when that is released. And then he also wants to know, Tornado Watch also wants to know when the non-conference schedule will be released. And my answer to that is soon. Historically, it's been really like around this time. So I wouldn't be surprised if we find out the non-conference, they release their non-conference schedule very soon. We do know 4 games, of course. One was just released here recently, November 20th on South Padre Island. Texas Tech will play Incarnate Word. They have a really cool little gym there at their convention center. I've covered tournaments there where some, big time Division I programs have played at before. They've had like preseason tournaments there. So there's a lot of, there's some college basketball history down there in South Padre Island and some connections that I think would surprise some folks. So that's pretty cool. I know Incarnate Word nobody gets really excited about, but hey, the team gets to go to the beach, to start the season. That's pretty cool. And then of course there's the Big 12 Big East battle where Tech will take on Providence December 1st in Providence. And then this one I think most people are really excited about, the Jerry Colangelo Classic. Tech will play Gonzaga in Phoenix. And that sounds like a lot of fun. Big 12 SEC Challenge, January 29th, Tech against Mississippi State here in Lubbock. So those are 4 non-conference games we knew already, but I expect the rest of the schedule to be released soon. Techosaurus Rex asks, he says, do I think this upcoming season is the most important in Tech history? He says he thinks we can make an argument in football. Well, that's interesting because there might be some really good timing with this. I believe this will be the best school year or seasons or collection of seasons in a school year for Texas Tech in the big sports, the 3 major sports. Since I've been here, at least, in this will be like the 9th calendar year that I'm here covering Texas Tech exclusively. And I'll tell you why. The basketball roster, like I just mentioned before, it's loaded. I have faith in Coach Adams. We have to see him do it, but I believe him and his staff are going to be really good. I think the team's going to be really good. So a lot of success there on the hardwood. I mean, Tim Tadlock and Red River Baseball, they're one of the elite programs in the country. I certainly believe they're going to have a lot of success this upcoming season. And in football, I've said this many times, I think this is going to be one of the most successful seasons here recently. I think they're going to go to a bowl game. I'm down predicting, saying they're going to win 7 games. I think Coach Wells and his staff have done a very good job of upgrading the roster. They're older, they're more talented, they're bigger, they're faster, and they're deeper. Now, I'm not saying they're going to challenge for a Big 12 title, but I think this is going to be like a lay the foundation type season. They're going to win some ball games, they're going to go to a bowl game, and I think it's going to be exciting for Texas Tech fans. How much that helps in terms of realignment, I don't know. You could argue that, but I think if nothing else, there'll be more success in those 3 major sports, and that could only help, right? Eastland asks, he says, who gets the most touches in the backfield this year, and who will surprise us the most on offense? Yeah, I'm going to stay just in the backfield. I think Sir Roderick, if healthy, will get the most touches. I mean, he's your bell cow. He's a home run hitter as well. So I think Sir Roderick will get the most touches if healthy. Now, who I think will surprise folks the most is Chadarius Townsend. He looked really, really good in spring ball. They have several options in the backfield now that I really like, so it's going to be interesting. But I think Townsend will add just a high-end, a next gear speed option for you on the perimeter out of the backfield that Tech may not have otherwise. So he looked really good. I'm expecting a lot from Chad Townsend. Midnight Raider asks, how is this whole realignment mess affecting recruiting? Is it causing kids to hesitate until they see some settling in the dust? I mean, that makes sense, right? Common sense is like if you're a recruit out there, you're like, you want to go to like a settled or have an idea of what conference you're going to be playing in, all that stuff, So I don't know if this is like, it's as dire or as critical as maybe some of us think, but because recruits want different things. Every recruitment is unique. I try and tell people. But I've already heard from one, major recruit, the guy I mentioned before, quarterback Austin Novosad from Dripping Springs, a 2023 quarterback, who told me, yeah, I'm gonna, wait and see how things play out for sure before I make any big decisions. But I don't think every recruit's gonna respond that way. Though some, as you'd imagine, will. Raider Power 7796 says, assuming the Big 12 stays together, minus UT and OU, how feasible would a Big 12 and Pac-12 scheduling agreement be? He says they could play the conference schedule and only the scheduled teams from the Pac for non-conference. Do I think that would help Tech eventually land in the Pac-12? I don't know if that would help or not. I mean, forming those relationships certainly wouldn't hurt anything. Tech is already, the thing about scheduling, and I don't know how much of this is going to get blown up. We're in uncharted territory here, but the thing about scheduling normally or traditionally is that it's done way in the future in terms of non-conference. You look at Tech's, for example, they have multiple games between now and 2032 already on the schedule. And a couple of those are with Pac-12 schools, coming up pretty soon. For example, you play a home and away with Oregon in 2023 and 2024. And then you have a home and away with Oregon State in 2025 and 2026. So You're already going to be playing some kind of West Coast teams. I know this isn't a Pac-12, but you got Colorado State also, on the schedule here later on in 25 and 26. So, I think it could help. I don't know how viable it is to do this fast. With, like I said, you already have your schedule set through the next, at least through 2027 in terms of your non-conference. And I don't know if you want to schedule all Power 5 games for your non-conference. That would be very difficult. Though it would be entertaining. It would be better for the fans. So, to answer your question, would it help? Hypothetically, maybe. Just forming those relationships. But it looks like you already have some of those relationships. You're going to be playing some of those Pac-12 schools anyways. Raider Power 81 asked about Maverick McIver. Is he still at Tech? He's still on the roster. In terms of me checking it today, he was still on the roster. He says he didn't play in the spring game and has not been mentioned by Wells when talking about his quarterback room. Yeah, I'm surprised that he is still listed on the roster. I thought he would have been gone already. Like, I've had a story written about him leaving for months at this point. The fit hasn't been there. The four guys that have been mentioned, Shuck, Columbi, Donovan Smith, Baron Morton, those guys, they've all the coaches, and rightfully so, I am too after seeing them all in spring, they're really high on all four of those guys. So Maverick McIver is just the man on the outside, looking in. So, unless something happens to all four of those guys, I don't see Maverick playing, even if he stays. But I would be surprised if he does stay for this season. But, I don't know. We'll have to see. I definitely, like I said, I don't see him in the rotation. Pointman1 says, what are your favorite events to watch in the Summer Olympics? I like the track. I always liked watching Usain Bolt. But Team USA relays and all that. It's really exciting. That's the traditional stuff I like. The basketball, of course, I love. Being a huge basketball fan. Especially now with I'm a Mad fan for life, seeing Luka with Slovenia. That's always fun, and then Team USA, are they going to get out of these struggles, or are they going to lose, are they not going to win a gold this year? So that's interesting to me. But some of the non-traditional events I like, and I would never watch these sports outside the Olympics, but water polo, how physical it is fun. Like archery and some of the rifle stuff, it's very like Robin Hood, where it gets very competitive and down to like a final shot, and they got to nail it. All the pressure. It's pretty cool. Even like handball, I'll watch. That's an interesting sport. That gets pretty physical as well. So, I like some of the weird sports like that for sure. Those are some of my favorites. So, with that, man, we had a lot of questions this round. I really appreciate all of them. They all were really good. Thank you all for watching, and until next time.